Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. Today in English class, I'll be hosting you guys for our presentation. I'm happy to see you guys here, and can we start now? Okay, I'll be calling the first group for the presentation, which is group one. Mm, uh, therefore, I therefore I welcome Danish Farhan to start with his presentation.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today I will present about my group research about the ancestor and heirloom. Okay, first I will present about Tashi's heirloom. Heirloom documentation by Tashi. Okay, description of Tashi heirloom is a sacred gold thread worn by brides post wedding. It is also known as tali. Name of the person originally belong to his great grandmother, Mrs. Goryama K. When was the tali made? During his great grandmother's wedding. And what is the tali used for? It is a sign of bond between the groom and the bride, showing that they are married and officially pronounced as husband and wife. Who does the tali belong to know? Who does the tali belong to know? His father tied it around his mother's neck during their wedding back in 2003. And names of people supplying the information is by Tashi's mother Sujata, anak perempuan Paramiswaran Pillai, and his grandmother Santama, anak perempuan Kunjurama Panika. Okay, the next one, I will present about Aiman's Helum Documentation. Okay, first, Aiman's Helum is an inherited land, white, and the name of person it's originally belonged to is Ma'ruf, and Ma'ruf is Aiman's grandfather. And the heirloom is about 4 billion years ago because it is a inherited land. So maybe the Earth age, but discovered around 1950. And the heirloom used for palm plantation, and the heirloom is belong to his mother's now. And the person supplying this information is his mother, Hairia Ma'ruf, uh, on yesterday, which is for October 2021. Okay, the next one I will present about Hakimi's heirloom. The heirloom is actually a keris, and it is originally belonged to Hakimi's grandfather, which named Haji Zainal. And the heirloom was made on 1940s, and it is used as a weapon. And now the heirloom is belong to his grandmother, and the person supplying the documentation is Hajah Zainah on 23 May 2016. The next one I will present about my heirloom. My heirloom is a dishes, a blue antique glass dishes. It is originally belonged to Hajah Mun, which is my great grandmother. And the heirloom was made in London, and it is used for a formal dinner, food serving, and eating food. This heirloom is now belongs to my mother as the elder child of my grandmother, and I get the information from my auntie and my mom yesterday on 4 October 2021. Okay, so the next one I will present uh, about Tashi ancestor. Tashi's ancestor's name is Goriyama K. Historical decade is 1890s, and her age is 106 years old. Live at Changna Cherry, Kerala. And her occupation is sewing teacher, and historical event is World War One and World War Two. And this is the picture of his ancestor named Goriyama K. Okay, so the next one I will present about Aiman's ancestor. Uh, his ancestor names Johari Hashim, historical decade at 1910, and his ancestors is 85 years old, and his ancestor at live in Kampung Parit Besar and work as a farmer. And Johari Hashim's world history events is First World War One, and national or regional history events is independence of Federation of Malaya, and no local history events. For Hakimi, his ancestor's name is Haji Ali, and historical decade is 1890, and his ancestor is 71 years old. His ancestor used to live in Kota Tinggi and work as Felda settler. And the world history events is World War One, World War Two, the Black Death, Spanish flu, and national history event Malaysia Independence Day and Hari Malaysia. And for city or town or local history events is Bukit Kepong, Melaka. And the next one is ancestor. My ancestor. Okay. My ancestor is my great grandfather named Haji Abdul Rahman bin Muhammad Saleh, and historical decade 1910s, and how old? 90 years old. And my ancestor live at Johor Bahru and working as imam at Masjid Sultan Abu Bakar. World history event, Turkish War of Independence, rise of radical political movements such as communism and fascism after World War One, and Charles Lindbergh becomes the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean non-stop from New York to Paris. And national history event, attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan during World War One, and Japan's force invade and begin the occupation of British Malaya, and Japan's force invade and begin the occupation of British Borneo. Then the last one is local history event. The Japanese crossed the Strait of Johor in inflatable boats and land in Singapore. Japan repaired the causeway and invaded the Singapore island easily during World War II, and Japan invaded Johor Bahru on 31 January 1942. I think that's all from our group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Danish, for the good presentation. I was amazed by your presentation as uh, you guys have a lot of information of your ancestors and the heirloom, and you guys made the task greatly. Uh, so we will move to the next presentation, which is group two. So can the presenter of group two, you can start your presentation now.
Assalamualaikum. I represent Group 2. For Group 2, um, these are my list of group members. Okay. For Malik, Helum is an old sewing machine. It originally belonged to Bayan binti Leman, and she was Malik late grandmother. The Helum was made around 1980s, around the year 1980s. It was used to sew clothes and curtains. Right now, it is belong to Rosna binti Saim. These are the list of people who supply this information. There is Rosna binti Saim at 4 October, and Tima binti Saim at 3rd October. For the next is Shafiq Helum. Shafiq Helum is a box full of old banknotes and coins around the world. It originally belonged to Ismail bin Waqci, that is his late grandfather. This Helum was made during his young days. What is it used? It was used as a personal collection for Shafiq and his grandfather. Right now, it belongs to Shafiq, and the person who supplied this information is Sharin binti Ismail at 4 of October. The next is my Helum. That is the dragon crop. It originally belonged to Asa bin Haji Abdul Ghani. It was my late grandfather. This Helum was made around 1960. It was used to store water. Right now, it is belong to my mother, that is Nur Haslinda binti Isa, and the person who supplied this information is my mother, Nur Haslinda binti Isa at 4 October, and Khatijah atau Maimun binti Said Omar at 4 October. Next is Malay ancestor. Malay ancestor name is Said bin Abdul. He lived in year 1927 to 1995. He was he was 16 years old at 1995. He lived at Kampung Melayu Pandan at Johor Bahru, Johor. He worked as a policeman. For the historical event, there was World War II in 1939 until 1945, and there was Malay land emergency at 1948 till 1960 and 1968 until 1989. The third one is Independence Day at 1957, and the last is the formation of Malaysia at 1963. For Shafiq ancestor, her name was Timah binti Ibrahim. She lived in the year 1930 until 2018. She was 18 years old. She lived in Kota Tinggi as her occupation. She was a food stall owner. For the historical event, at first the Japanese invasion of Malaya, that is at 1941. The second is Malaysia Independence Day at 1957. And the last event is formation of Malaysia at 1963. And lastly, my ancestor is Said Omar bin Said no. He lived around 1940 in 1940s. His age is in early 70s. He lived in Johor Bahru and worked as a lawyer's clerk. For the historical event, at first there is World War II in Malaysia. That is at 1945, and there was Malaysia Independence Day at 1957. And the last is the formation of Malaysia at 1963. That's all from my group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam, for the presentation. Your group's presentation is good as some of you are already got the Helum of your ancestors, which is you are the generation that will keep the Helum. So you guys will have a precious thing from your late grandparents, and you can and if you are in need, you can sell it for goods. Okay, let's move on to the third group for the presentation. Uh, can I have Sharil to present his group work? And for the audience, can you please answer uh, the Miss Atika's question in the comment section, which is what did you learn when researching for this topic? Sharil is not here, so can we move to the next group, which is Serena's group? Can I have Irina to present the work?
Selena, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My group will start presenting our heirloom and ancestor. My group members is Serena, Balkis, me, and Shazwina. So the first person which I want to present the Helum and Ancestor is Wina. Okay. The first question, describe the Helum. So Shazwina's Helum is a recipe that was originated in Perak, which is rendang tok. The name of the person it originally belonged to, her name was Maimuna, which was her maternal great grandmother. About when was the Helum made? Oh, very long time ago. Because her this Helum was because it is a recipe. It was inherited by generation and generation, and they consistently um, stay the same recipe for all the generation. So when was the time this Helum was made? It does not known to her family. And then, what was the Helum used for? It is used as a special dish during wedding ceremony. This is quite common for us in Malay's wedding, as we can see, because in Malay's wedding there are a lot of dish that we can see, and this her her generation rendang tu is quite a special one. It is cooked during when one of her family's wedding or ceremony. Uh, and then who does the Helum belong to now? Her mother inherited the recipe right now. And last, name the person supplying this information. This information is supplied by Noor Azan Idris, which is her mother on 4th October this year. And then we start with Shazwina ancestor. Her ancestor's name is Sabah. With the spelling of Sabar, and then her ancestor lived in historical decade around 1860s, and he was in approximately 161 years. Um, where did he live? Her ancestor lived in Bota, which is a mukim in Perak Tengah. This is quite a history information. We don't know where is Perak Tengah now, but we all know there is this place. And then the last one is what was her ancestor occupation, which is a merchant. Okay. So the next person is Balkis. Describe the Helum. Balkis families inherited a land located in Parit Kasan, Muar. It was originally belonged to her gra- or her great grandfather, which is Abu Bakar bin Yaman, and it is this person was her maternal great grandfather, which is a long generation ago. This land was very precious to her family, and because it is quite a big land, and they can make anything in the land. So, what was the Helum used for? It is used for agriculture and build some houses. And who does the Helum belong to now? The Helum belong to her grandmother and her siblings. So, for the land, it is quite known that we or in Islam or any other culture that if any of in our family, we have to divide the land evenly um, within our siblings. So name the person supplying this information. This information is supplied by Salawati binti Tumin and Mariam binti Munaji on the date of 3rd October and 4th October. So next, we learn about Balkis' ancestor. Balkis' ancestor's name is Karsan bin Abu, which lived in around of historical decade 1920s. How and how old was her ancestor is 102 years old. And where was her ancestor living? Her ancestor living is Semarang, Indonesia, and the ancestor's occupation is a farmer. And next, we are going to learn some of the events by his ancestors experience, which is World War One and World War Two, as we all know, because we look at the ancestor history. This is quite a long time, and surely he experienced these two world history events, which is quite um, uh, surprising and wow factor, because yeah, that is how we all get our independence now. So, and commonly, the local history event that her ancestors experienced is Independence Day of Malaysia in 1957. Okay, so the next person is Serena. Describe the heirloom. The heirloom that Serena's family got is Keris, and the name of the person it originally belonged to is Sheikh Yahya Abdullah bin Nasir. Um, how was this person related to her? He was her maternal great great grandfather's religion teacher, because we all know Keris is kind of a precious uh, a precious thing for us Malays. Malays. So Keris, getting a Keris for our heirloom is kind of special, and it is not rare now to see it in a family. Um, so when was the heirloom made? The heirloom made in 80th century. And what was the heirloom used for? It was believed that it will make people fear our family, because we all know that keris is kind of ancient knife, but with all the curve and the design. And then who does the heirloom belong to now? The heirloom belongs to Zul Mazdi bin Muhammad Shukur, which is her uncle. And the person that supplying this information is Noliza Suryati binti Muhammad Shukur at 4th October, which is her mother, and her aunt, her aunt at 4th October, Nur Shafinas binti Muhammad Shukur. So this was the Keris picture. Yeah. So next we continue with Serena's ancestor history. Her ancestor name is Haji Sirat bin Awang, which lived in around historical decade of 8070s. And how old was her ancestor is he lived from 1868 to 1956 year, which is 88 years old. And then where was her ancestor living? He lives in Sungai Petani Kedah. And yeah, because Serena's family is her mother's family originally from Kedah. So and then what was her ancestor occupation? Her ancestor occupation is farmer and a businessman. So next, her ancestor also experienced World War II, which happened around 1941 to 1945. So the experience of living in a world war situation is kind of thrill, but we don't know what exactly happened. So that's all from Serena's ancestor. So next, the last one is my ancestor and Helum documentation of my own is it was an old skull with small flower stitches that we can see. This is not this is kind of heirloom, but it is common. But what makes it special is that my um, my first my first great great maternal grandmother made it herself, because her name was Tija binti Makin, and it is this special scarf was used especially for in family's wedding only, because we have the signature of our uh, family's generation heirloom, because my great maternal grandmother was a tailor in her life. So she made her own name by making her own clothes and stuff like this. Um, and then who does the heirloom belongs to now? It belongs to my mother's older sister. Um, and only she. This heirloom is also special because only the firstborn daughter in each generation gets the heirloom. And then name of the people supplying this information. This information supplied by Rokia binti Aris, which is my aunt, my first aunt, alias Roki. And unfortunately, I we cannot get the picture, so I can't show you anything about the color of the design. And then my ancestor in history. So my ancestor's name is Tija Meti Makin. And she lives around 1930s. And how old was my ancestor? My my family cannot predict the old, because there are no official or anything like papers or letters for us. Yeah, so we get the heirloom straight, but without the any documentation. It was inherited hand by hand. And then my ancestor occupation is a tailor, which I just told you right now. Okay. And then lastly, the world history events is World War II in 1941, and the local history events is Independence Day of Malaysia. And then because of my ancestor lives in Singapore back then, so she also experienced the Singapore a separation from Malaysia, another local history events. So that is all from my group in for our Helum and Ancestor. Thank you. Okay, I may pass to you, Shainda.
Thank you, Irina, for the presentation. Uh, it was kind of interesting that the recipe of rendang tok is inherited from generation to generation, as the cooking process and the recipes is kind of hard, and when it is inherited, uh, you can still cook it without uh, without making it being forgotten as the time goes by. Um, okay, we will move to the next group, which is um, which is, we will move to the next group of Renata's group. So can I have Renata to present their group's work?
Shinda, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, hi everyone. Um, Today I'm going to present the Heirloom documentation of my group. My group members are Muna, Khadija, and Akila. Okay, the first heirloom is Muna Nabiha's, a locket made up of gold. It is oval in shape and it is looked just like a normal locket, but it holds so many memorable memories. A name of it is originally belonged to is Halima binti Mat Said. She was She is the ancestor, um, who is Muna Nabiha's mother's grandmother. The heirloom is made in early 1930s. It is used as an accessory. Okay, now the heirloom is belong to her mother. The person who supplied this information is Mona Lisa binti Bachok on 4th October. The ancestor name is Halima binti Mat Said. The historical decade is 19th century. The ancestor is 95 years old. She lives in Segamat, Johor. She used to work as rubber taper, and the list of history events is World War II. Okay, the next Helum is Akilas, a bakery located at Jalan Dobi, Johor Bahru. The name of the person who originally belonged to is Salahuddin. He was he is the grandmother's cousin, her her cousin's grandmother's father. Okay, the Helum is made in early 1930s. The Helum is used for a place for fine money by selling freshly baked breads. Mm, um, this heirloom is belong to her grandmother's brother now. The person who supplying this information is Asambi bin Ishaq on 3rd October. The ancestor name is Salahuddin. Historical decade 1930s. He is 94 years old and living in Johor Bahru, Johor. He used to work as baker in the bakery. Okay, this is my heirloom, which is a beautiful antique gold broad necklace. It is designed with smooth white pearl. The person it originally belonged to is Achama. She is my great grandmother. This heirloom is made in early 1950s, which is used as a jewelry. Now it is belongs to my mother now. It is special because this necklace is only given to the first daughter in each family. It is my great grandmother, so she passed that to my grandmother as she is the first daughter in her family. And now my grandmother gave that to my mother. The name of person supplying this information is Manjula, my mother. On yesterday. Okay, my ancestor's name is Achama. Historical decade 1920s. She is 98 years old now. She used to live in Teluk Intan, Perak, and she has worked as a farmer. The list of world history events is World War II. The last one is a gold necklace with red diamond of locket. This is a heirloom of Siti Khadijah. The name of it originally belonged to is Saima binti Was. She is Siti Khadijah's great grandmother. This heirloom is made in early 1950s and used as accessory. Um, Now the heirloom is belonged to her mother. The name of person supplying this information is Siti Aini bin Suparti on 4th October. The ancestor name is Samia binti Was. Historical decade 1920s. The ancestor is 97 years old and lived in Gelang Pata, Johor. She used to work as rubber taper. Okay, that's all from my group.
Okay, thank you, Renata, for the presentation. Um, okay, many of you guys in the group have necklace uh as the heirlooms, and as as I can see, the Renata's heirloom is inherited for the first daughter of the family. So I guess that Renata will be inherit the necklace for the next generation, eh?
I hope
Okay.
that's so.
Okay. We will move to the next group, which is Ifa's group. Can I have Ifa to present the work?
Can you see my slide? Okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Firstly, I will talk about Shahinda's Heirloom Documentation. Uh, her heirloom is Grace Spear and Shaman medication things. It originally belonged to Ibrahim bin Muhammad, which is her great great grandfather. Uh, about when was the heirloom made? Uh, it was made 100 years ago, around 1922. The heirloom is used for owns and family safety for medicational purpose. The heirloom belong. Who does the heirloom belong to now? Some of them are sold and some of them are passed to the children and is nowhere to be found. This ace belongs to my father, which he got from my grandfather that originally belonged to my ancestor. Names of person or purpose supplying this information to Shahinda is her dad on 10 October 2021. So next, her ancestor history. Her ancestor name is Ibrahim bin Muhammad. His historical decade is around 1819. He was 126 years old if he still alive, but he died at 90. Uh, Shahinda's ancestors lived at Kampung Darat Kijal, Kemaman, Terengganu. Her ancestor's occupation is a farmer. So the work history events that her ancestors have been through is World War II at 1939, Pearl Harbor attack at 1941, and so at 1945 the World War II was ended. So lastly, list national original history events. The invention of Japanese in Tanah Melayu, British military administration, BMA was replaced by Malayan Union, independence for Tanah Melayu, Malaysia and Singapore separated, May incident between Malay and Chinese. Uh, okay, next I will talk about Alia Maisara's Heirloom Documentation. The heirloom that she has it's an old brown handwritten receipt book with so much random papers placed between pages. The book's bond has already broken. A lot recipe taken from various sources such as magazines and newspapers. So the heirloom is originally belongs to Zainabun binti Zainal Abidin, which is her my grandmother. About when was the heirloom made is 1960s. Her grandmother started distributing the recipe since she's 18 years old. So what was the heirloom used for? The heirloom used for family-based cooking recipe. So who does the heirloom belong to now is her mom. Name of person supplying this information to Alia is her mom, Nur Ashikin binti Ahmad Karman Shah, at 3rd of October 2021. So next is Alia Maisara's Ancestors History. Her ancestor's name is Zainal Abidin. Uh, the ancestor's historical decade is 1920s. Uh, how old was her ancestor? Her ancestor was 67 years old. Her ancestor lived in Singapore. Her ancestor occupation was oil company supervisor. The world history events that her ancestor was been through. First woman gained right to vote. Uh, the Chinese Civil War begins. Earthquake at Japan Island with 7.9 magnitude. And the city or town or local history events is Sabaro Island, Singapore, small village. Okay, next, Alia Zainul's Heirloom Documentation. The heirloom that Alia Zainul's family have is the car, which is one of Proton brand model, and the color is blue. Uh, so the car is originally belonged to Abu Bakr, which is her great grandfather. So the heirloom made was around 1850s. Um, the heirloom used for her great grandfather to go to work with the car. The heirloom belonged to her grandfather now. So the person that supplied the information to Alia Zainul is her mom Zubaidah binti Majasin at 3rd of October 2021. And Alia Zainul's Ancestor's History. Her ancestor name is Majasin. His historical decade was 1957. Uh, Her ancestor was 102 years old, and her ancestor is lived in Krubong, Melaka, and her ancestors' occupation was animal breeders. So the world history events that her ancestors have been through is World War II, which is at 1939, and at 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor and Normandy landings in 1944. So the national original history events is 1941 Japanese invasion of Malaya, declaration of Independence Day, and establishment of the Malaysia Federation. Okay, the last one is my heirloom documentation and ancestor. The heirloom that my family have is keris that made by my great grandfather himself. So the person it originally belonged to was Tardi bin Savam. He was my great grandfather. The heirloom that he made was around 1985. Uh, the heirloom is used for home decoration and hunting animals since he likes to go to forest. So who does the heirloom belong to now? Uh, the heirloom belong to my father's eldest brother. So the person or people supplying this information to me is my father, Ramli bin Asmari, at on 3rd October 2021. Now about my ancestors' history. My ancestor's name is Tardi bin Savam. His historical decade was 1911. My ancestor was 79 years old. Um, he is live at Masai Johor. So his occupation was laborer. The world history events that he've been through is World War II, Pearl Harbor attack, and at the end of World War II. So the national original history events is independence for Tanah Melayu, Malaysia is stabilized, Malaysia and Singapore separated, which is at 1965 he moved to Singapore at that time for and stay there for a year, I guess. Okay, that's all from my group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ifa, for the presentation. So for the last presentation for this session, can I have Akif to present the work of their group?
Yes. Can you see my screen? Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. So this is my group's Helum and Ancestries by Syaril, Arif, me and Adib. So the first is Syaril's Helum. So the Helum is a long necklace with emerald pendant. It is originally belonged to Mrs. Hafsah, which is his late grandmother. So the heirloom was made at around 1960s. It used as accessories for women. Now it belonged to his auntie, who is the elder of his mother's siblings. So the person who supplying this information was his mother on 4th October 2021. So next is Syaril's ancestor. His name is Muhammad Sharif. He lived in 1941 until 2003. He is 62 years old in 2003. He lived in Kuantan, Pahang, and he worked as a farmer. So the historical events, the world history events for he experienced and lived through is World War II during 1939 until 1945, Asian Pacific War 1941 until 1945, and for national history events is Japanese invasion of Malaya during 1941, formation of Malayan Union 1946, and also Malaysia's Independence Day 1957. And for the city history events is the Battle of Kuantan during 1941 until 1942. So next is my heirloom. My heirloom is a swastika ring inlaid with green agate. So it is originally belonged to Saleh Berais, which is my late great grandfather. It is made around the 1910s and it used as the jewelry. So it belongs to me now. And the person who supplying this information was my late father, Abdul Syukur Allah, in 2017. So next is my ancestor. His name is Abdullah bin Saleh. He lived in 1929 until 1997. He was 68 years old at 1997 and he lived at Parit Muhammad, Batu Pahat, Johor. He worked as a rubber tapper. So he experienced and lived through the Second World War, the Parit Sulong Massacre at 1942, Battle of Batu Pahat 1945 between the local people and the MPAJA, Malaya's Independence Day 1957, and also the formation of Malaysia 1963. So next is Arif's Helum. So his Helum is a Vespa scooter, which is originally belonged to Abdul Samad, his late great grandfather. It is made in the 1940s. So it used for transportation and going to work. It is now being stored by his uncle and the information supplied by his parents in 2031. So Arif's ancestor is Abdul Rahman bin Abdul Samad. He lived in the 1950s. Age in present day is 74. He lived in Kota Tinggi and worked as a farmer. So the historical events he experienced and lived through is Malaysia's Independence Day in 1957, formation of Malaysia 1963, and modernization and development of Kota Tinggi. Lastly is Adib's. Adib's heirloom is a small sword with beautiful patterns on its handle known as Chris. It is originally belonged to Mr. Ma'adam, which is his grandfather. The heirloom was made at around early 20th century. It is used to fight enemies during the old times, and it is now belong to his father. The person who supplying this information was his father, Muhammad Kaha, in 2021. Oh, so and lastly, Adib's ancestor name was Ma Adam. He lived around 1940. Ma Adam, he is his grandfather is 90 years old now. So he lived in Batu Pahat, Johor. He worked as a seller in a local market. So the historical events he lived and experienced through is World War II in 1945, Independence Day in 31st of August 1957, and also the local events is the city has become popular as it is known as for the industrial manufacture during mid 1950s until now. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Akif, for the presentation. Okay, before we end our session, I would like to invite Miss Atika to give the wrap up.
Right. Thank you so much, Shahinda, for your service today. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Thanks so much. Right. For today's lesson, I think that most of you managed to research all the information that's needed for for today's presentation. I am quite impressed with the level of knowledge that you managed to acquire from your parents, from the interview that you have with your parents, as well as perhaps your sharing session or perhaps a chat session with your grandpa or grandma. Okay, so it's very important that you know where you're coming from so that you won't forget where you are supposed to be going. Right? Okay, so for an exit ticket for today, okay, I would like to I would like you to share you with this question. Okay, so once this broadcast have ended, because we've got plus minus 20 minutes left for our session today, I need you to answer this question. Okay, if you could pass down an heirloom to an heir, again the pronunciation is heirloom, to an heir. Heirloom means pusaka, heir means um, heir means waris. Okay, what would they be and why? All right. So if you could pass down an heirloom to an heir, what would they be and why? As you can see there, you probably have received heirlooms from your older generation. Some of you have already received it. Most of it in the form of jewelry. Okay, so now returning this question back to you. Okay, so if you are now a grandpa or if you are now a grandma, okay, and you have an heirloom, what do you think that you would pass down to your heir? Okay, and why would you pass that down? Okay, right. So an heirloom could be anything as you have probably listened to just now. It could be a recipe, means that it could be a knowledge, or it could be jewelry, something that to remember them by, or it could be other things that you think might be helpful for your heir to navigate through his or her life. Okay, so once this broadcast ended, please answer this question in the comment section. Other than that, thank you for listening in. Thank you for coming into this class. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye, everyone.